So good to have you with us today, friends, as we gather in our homes and continue in this series of walking through the writings of Matthew, this journey of discovering who Jesus is, how he is coming alongside you, how he's coming alongside me, but also a journey of self-discovery, self-awareness. Today, we're going to look at some writings of Matthew that are going to help, hopefully for you and for me, paint a bit of a better picture on what exactly, when we hear the phrase kingdom of heaven, what exactly was Jesus talking about? Was he talking about something that's after this life, heaven, something separate, something removed from what we know now, something that's better, something that's beyond our wildest dreams? Is it something completely different? Is it something that's happening even right now? Or even this? Is the kingdom of heaven taking place in your heart, in my heart, as we grasp who Jesus is, and as we welcome Jesus, again, his invitation to you and me, come, as you and I welcome him in. Is this the kingdom of heaven? Would you join me in prayer? God, today as we spend some time unpacking truth, the truth of your Son, God with us, God in the flesh, Lord, give us the space we need in our minds, in our hearts to block out anything that may be standing in the way of us seeing Jesus. God, I think of the story at the end of this chapter in Matthew 20 where a question is asked of Jesus by a couple of folks that are blind, and he just asks them simply, "What is it that you want?" And they reply, "We want to see." God, may that be our heart's cry today and every day. Jesus, we want to see. But even more than that, Jesus, we would pray that we don't want to see just this physical life and all that's around us, but we want to see you. What are you up to? What are you doing in me? Jesus, would you mold us? Would you shape us into a better understanding of how we can be a part of your kingdom? So speak today through the time of singing that we share and through looking at this story as Matthew has given it to us. Speak, we pray. Amen.
I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand, all other ground is sinking sand. the Lord, oh my soul. Oh, my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before. Oh, my soul, I'll worship your holy name. The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Oh, my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before. Oh, my soul, I'll worship your holy name. You're rich in love and you're slow to anger. Your name is great and your heart is kind. For all your goodness I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Oh, my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before. Oh, my soul, I'll worship your holy name. And on that day when my strength is failing, the end draws near and my time has come. Still my soul will sing your praise unending. 10,000 years and then forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Oh, my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before. Oh, my soul, I'll worship your holy name. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Oh, my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before. Oh, my soul, I'll worship your holy name. I'll worship your holy name. Lord, I'll worship your holy name. do whatever you want to do whatever you want to, and I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. Here is where I lay it down, every burden, every crown. This is my surrender. This is my surrender. Here is where I lay it down, every lie and every doubt. This is my surrender, and I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to, and I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to, and I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to, and I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. Shake up the ground of all my tradition, break down the walls of all my religion. Your way's better, your way's better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition, break down the walls of all my religion. Your way's better, your way's better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition, break down the walls of all my religion. Your way's better, your way's better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition, break down the walls of all my religion. Your way's better, your way's better, and I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to, and I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. Here is where I lay it down. You are all I'm chasing now. This is my surrender. This is my surrender. Here is where I lay it down. You are all I'm chasing now. This is my surrender. This is my surrender.
So what I want to do, friends, is I've got my Bible here in front of me. At least one translation that I use from time to time is the New Living, if you're wondering. And I'm going to walk us through this relatively quickly. I'm not going to read this entire story. I'm going to pull out some things. But as I've been doing in recent weeks, I want to leave you with a series of questions that you can continue in dialogue in your homes this week. How's that been going? Those dinner table conversations. As you sit with your spouse, as you sit with your neighbor, as you sit with your friend, what are you discovering together? I want to encourage you, continue to lean into hearing and listening to one another's story as we walk this together. So let's jump in to this story today. It's found in Matthew 20. Jesus begins, he says, "For the kingdom of heaven is like the landowner who went out early one morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay the normal daily wage and sent them out to work." Friends, one of the first things that jumps out at me here, we have, for the kingdom of heaven is like. Jesus gives people listening here an illustration of how God the Father desires to interact with you and I, with humanity. He wants us to become involved. He wants us to work. He wants us to be engaged in what's going on in the world around us. And so Jesus begins to unpack this parable of a vineyard. And of course, you may be well aware that in that first century Jewish context, working in a vineyard was a very common place. It was a very common job. And this is something that people would have understood, and they would have wanted to have been treated fairly for a full day's work. Well, as this story goes on, we see that the landowner, he hired folks at 9 o'clock. Then he went out again back into town. He hired more again at 3. He hired some at 5 o'clock and said, "Go out and get to work." Why aren't you working? Well, nobody's asked us. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But then as the story continues, we see that they all finished their work, and those that were hired latest in the day were paid first. And so they were given a full day's wage and so on, back up to the people that were hired first thing in the morning. Well, guess what? They were paid the same wage that those were hired at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And you think, well, wait a minute. Those that they worked how many more hours here? That doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem fair. What is God saying here? Listen to the response. He answered one of them, "Friend, I haven't been unfair. Didn't you agree to work all day for the usual wage? Take your money and go. I wanted to pay this last worker the same as you. Is it against the law for me to do what I want with my money? Should you be jealous because I am kind to others?" Whoa. So we have this idea of a generous God, how God is generous to those who give of their time. Now, there's a few things I want to pull out here. The first thing that we see is that God is looking to treat everyone equal. We see this in the generosity that he displayed. But what about the workers? Who were they focused on? At least the ones that started to work early in the morning. They were focused on themselves. In the 7th verse of this writing, the landowner asked, "Well, why haven't you been working already today?" "Well, no one hired us. No one took notice of us." Friend, I want to stop right there. I want to lean into that a little bit. Are there people around you that have wonderful gifts to give to our culture, to contribute to society, but no one seems to be taking notice and they're not able to take part? Could it be that God would be asking you, he would be asking me to come alongside those people and say, why don't you join me? Why don't you join me? I want to share with you some of the neat things that are happening in my life, in the community that I'm a part of. Come and see. Come and be a part of this. I just wonder, friends, if that's a part of the calling that Jesus is pulling out here. Another piece to this, again, the bit of the attitude we're seeing from some of the workers later in the day. What do we see from the landowner? He was welcoming to everyone. And perhaps the challenge to you and I is that we need to be welcoming even to people we don't think should be there. And then, well, no one asked us to work. Well, maybe it's for you and I to do the asking, to do the inviting. And again, in verse 14, we're reminded here who has all the authority. Again, I come back to the declaration of God, the Father, the most important declaration of all of history. You may remember it from when Jesus was baptized. He said, "This is my Son." And again, we saw it when we looked at the story of the Transfiguration. Jesus has all authority here. And even though his generosity is being challenged, he very gently, very calmly replies, well, am I not able to do with what I've been given what I ought to do? Jesus again reaffirms his place in God's kingdom. Now, as this story goes on, and as Jesus' closest followers are walking with him, for the third time here, Jesus predicts in front of them that he's going to die. But that's not the end. He says, I'm going to come to life again. I will be raised on the third day. I was sharing with a group of people earlier this week that it's interesting from one commentary, one pastor that was speaking on this passage that I was researching. He made a very important observation. In looking at this, we find here at this point in time, Jesus and his followers, they are on their way to Jerusalem. We know now that the time is coming near when this event, when this death that Jesus predicts, it is actually going to happen. And you know what, followers? You're going to see it. You're going to witness this incredible suffering that Jesus is going to go through. And then we come to the spot, I want to come to verse 16, so that those who are last now will be first then, and those who are first will be last. The way Eugene Peterson phrases this, he calls it the great reversal. Can I ask you something today? With everything that's been going on around us, do you feel forgotten? God has not forgotten you. I realize time keeps moving, but to you, maybe right now, time feels like it's standing still. You're not moving anywhere. You feel forgotten. Friends, this is the great reversal. This is what the kingdom of heaven is like. He remembers those, even that are coming towards the end. And he treats them the very same way. James and John, kind of out of their ego and pride, picking up of what Cheryl Ann shared with us last week and looking at the story in the previous chapter of the rich young ruler, James and John ask a very bold request of Jesus. They want to sit with him. They want to sit with him. In actual fact, it's the mother of James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Please let my two sons sit in places of honor next to you, one on your right and one on your left. Now, here Jesus responds. He says, you have no idea. You have no idea what you're asking. And then he looks at James and John and he says, are you capable of drinking the cup that I'm about to drink? And they said, sure, why not? I've got this. The ego was big. The pride was big. I can do this. I can stand with Jesus through anything. Charge on, they say. And Jesus is genuinely looking at them and saying, can you really drink of this cup? Do you really understand the suffering that's about to take place? If we go on in the story, we know what happened to all the disciples, don't we? When Jesus was hanging there on that cross, they all went into hiding, including James and John, nowhere to be found. Maybe their ego was blowing up at that point. Maybe their pride was hurt as they saw their dear friend hanging there. But this is the bitter cup that Jesus was inviting them to drink from. Maybe another way to look at this, maybe I could ask you, maybe I could ask myself, what does bitter, something that's bitter, what does it taste like? Is it pleasant? And how can you make something that's bitter taste better? How can you make something that's bitter taste better? Now, before you answer that and say, oh, well, I can mix something with this drink, or if I'm doing something with certain foods, I can mix it this way, and that'll make the bitter taste go away. I think, friends, it's like that sometimes in life. We want to mix some things in there to make the bitterness go away. Notice here that Jesus is not asking us to do that. He would experience that suffering. He wasn't asking for the pain to be dulled, but he was going to walk right through it. He was going to walk right through it. Here's where I want to leave you. And I want you to take time this week to really key in on this. I want to come back to the story at the end of the chapter. I mentioned it in my opening prayer. The two blind men. We find this story here at the end of this chapter in Matthew's writing of these events. The question that these blind men answered, Jesus very openly asked them, what do you want? And they said, we want to see. Now, I realize in the context of what they were asking, friends, they were talking about physical sight. But I just wonder if Jesus was thinking something deeper, to give them eyes to really see what the kingdom of heaven is like. And in healing them, was Jesus giving them that glimpse to the presence of God right here and right now. There's a lot that's been going on in our world. And I've had conversations with many of you about what's been happening, and I've been privileged to sit and listen to you share your thoughts around all of it. And there's an interesting thing that I'm seeing unfold with all the different views and opinions as to what's happening around us, even within the context of our church family. There's various opinions and views on what's happening, even within a single household, how we unpack ideas. And we could talk about vaccines, the mandates, the lifting of restrictions, what's happening in Ukraine, along many other events happening in our world. If I was to try and simplify that and unpack that, to give us a sense, friends, to come back to what I said earlier, what is the kingdom of heaven like? Here's what I want you to wrestle with this week. Some of you may lean this way on some of these topics, or maybe other when you have conversations at the table. Some of you may lean over this way, and you chat back and forth, and maybe there's some disagreement. Maybe you can't come to an agreement, and it's really hard, and you're trying to figure out how to move forward. Here's what we discover in this story as Jesus shares it, the parable of the vineyard. And here's what we discover when Jesus predicts his death for the third time. Jesus is willing to meet you. He's willing to meet me right in the middle. And by going to the middle, it got him killed. It got him killed. But he's inviting you that maybe you're over here, maybe you're over here. He's saying, come towards me. Here in the middle, this is where I will meet you. This is where we can, should, and will commune together. As we wrestle with what's fair, what's not fair. Is this a daily wage? Is this not a daily wage? Oh, this person, I'm not sure where they're at. This person, I'm not sure where they're at. Well, if I could only do this, if I could be with Jesus in this way, then all would be good. We've got all kinds of ideas. But Jesus says, come to the middle, and I will meet you there. So as you sit at your tables this week, maybe there's a topic that's coming to your mind. I know in our household, it's the topic of the lifting of restrictions, thinking of our children. My wife is in the school system, and all the things that they're walking. And we've had some pretty lengthy discussions around, well, should masks stay? Should they not stay? And we've come out on different sides on that, and not always agreed. But friends, when we're aware of the kingdom of heaven, in here, Jesus' presence, he will meet us right in the middle of those conversations. Let's go there with God this week, because he is already where we are going.